I'm here today to interview to let the world and everybody know that I am retired.
I'm here today to let the world know that I am retired. That's Brock Lesnar a few days ago on the Pat McAfee show. Simple. Final. Except this is the third time Brock Lesnar has retired, and the last two times it didn't stick. So today we're breaking down what actually happened, why insiders are saying this was planned for over a year, why a lot of fans, including people close to Obafemi, aren't happy about how it went down and what this actually means for the next generation of WWE. Because there's a lot more going on here than one guy deciding he's tired. Let's start from the beginning. Rewind to WrestleMania 42. Brock Lesnar walks in as the legend, faces Obafemi, WWE's new North American powerhouse, and loses badly. This wasn't a competitive back-and-forth match where Brock looked strong in defeat. Femi dominated him, physically overwhelmed him. For a guy who built his entire career on looking unstoppable, that's not a small thing. And then he does something nobody scripted, or at least nobody thinks was scripted. He sits in the ring, takes off his gloves, takes off his boots, and leaves them behind. In wrestling, that's the universal signal for "I'm done." It's the same gesture legends have used for decades to say goodbye without saying a word. Even Triple H seemed caught off guard by it. He said afterward that Brock isn't the type to walk backstage and have a long conversation about his future. Brock walks back angry, gets on his bus, and that's that. No debrief. No sitting down with the creative team to plan out a farewell tour. Just gone. So fans, media, everybody, we all assumed that was it. Career over. 20 plus years, done in a single moment in the ring. No fanfare, no goodbye speech. Just boots left behind under the ropes. Except it wasn't. Weeks later, Brock Lesnar shows up on Raw and blindsides Obafemi with 4, count 'em, 4, F5S. No warning, no press conference, just violence. The guy who supposedly walked away forever was suddenly back, and not in a nostalgic one last run kind of way. He came back angry. He came back like he had something to prove. Turns out, Brock had signed on for one more match, Clash in Italy. He wins that one. And that set up a trilogy-ending match at SummerSlam, Hell in a Cell, in Brock's actual hometown of Minneapolis. Which, if you're going to write the ending to a legendary career, is about as perfect a setting as you could script. Now here's where it gets interesting, and where this story stops being just about wins and losses. There were reports, from sources close to Obafemi, that Femi actually found it disrespectful that Brock took off his boots for that emotional goodbye at WrestleMania, and then came back weeks later like nothing happened. Like the moment didn't mean anything. Like Femi's win, the biggest win of his young career, got erased the second. Brock decided he wasn't actually finished. Insiders say Femi felt Brock's return undercut the respect he'd earned by beating him in the first place. That's a real tension point worth sitting on for a second, because it says something about how even the people inside the story didn't fully buy the first retirement either. If Obafemi, the guy standing across the ring from Brock, was skeptical, why would we, the audience, have taken it at face value? There's also a separate rumor floating around from wrestling veteran Vince Russo, who claimed Brock's reaction at WrestleMania wasn't just about losing. It reflected real tension with Triple H. Now, that one's unverified, and take it with a grain of salt, but it adds another layer to why that boots-off moment felt so raw. If there was genuine backstage frustration mixed into that scene, it wasn't just performance. It was Brock actually processing something. So we get to SummerSlam. 2 days, US Bank Stadium, Minneapolis. Brock's literal backyard. Hell in a Cell. The rubber match. The decider. And Obafemi wins again. Clean. Decisive. No fluke finish. No controversial ending to argue about. And this time, Brock does something he almost never does in his entire career. He puts Femi over. Publicly calls him the future of WWE. For a guy who spent 2 decades being positioned as the most dominant force in the company, that's Brock Lesnar handing the torch on camera in front of his hometown crowd. WWE immediately started treating it like a farewell. They quietly moved Lesnar to the alumni section of their website before any official announcement had even been made. Fans noticed that within hours, they posted a tribute video on social media featuring Roman Reigns, thanking Brock for their history in the ring together. Reigns, who has one of the most storied rivalries with Lesnar in modern WWE history, taking the time to publicly send him off. Everything about the presentation said, "This is the end," not "See you next year." The end. Here's the part that's actually a little strange if you think about it, though WWE didn't announce this. Brock did. On a podcast, 2 days after his last match, sitting on a video call with Pat McAfee. Not on Raw. Not in a produced video package with dramatic music. A wrestling company's biggest attraction of the last 2 decades confirmed his retirement on a sports talk show. He said the WrestleMania loss was actually the moment it hit him, that he couldn't do this anymore, that he was done, even though he still had some fuel left in the tank. But after SummerSlam, that was really it. Not just for wrestling, for combat sports, period. That's a guy closing the book completely, not leaving the door open for one more UFC run or a surprise comeback somewhere else. He also talked about what's next, spending more time with his kids. His sons play hockey, and his daughter's actually eyeing the 2028 Olympics, and getting back to hunting on his farm in South Dakota. This is a guy who's talked before about just wanting to disappear into normal life when it's over, and it sounds like that's exactly the plan. It's a genuinely emotional interview, honestly. He talks about being a farm kid from South Dakota with a big dream and a big heart and a big chip on his shoulder. He talks about the little kids who followed him since he was young himself, and he encourages them to focus on hard work instead of chasing attention. That's not corporate. That's not a scripted promo cut in some production studio. That part feels real, and it's probably the most human we've heard Brock Lesnar sound in years. Now here's the twist that changes how you look at this whole story. Dave Meltzer, one of the most trusted insiders in wrestling, someone who's been breaking backstage news for decades, says this wasn't some spontaneous emotional decision made in the ring at WrestleMania. He says WWE had penciled in Brock's retirement around SummerSlam 2026 for a long time. Not just a rumor that popped up after the fact, a working plan that had reportedly been floating around internally since earlier this year, alongside similar retirement tours being discussed for AJ Styles, and potentially Chris Jericho if he ever left AEW for WWE. So think about that for a second. The boots off moment at WrestleMania? Maybe genuine emotion in the moment. Brock's body clearly wasn't cooperating with him anymore. But if the actual retirement date was already circled on a calendar for SummerSlam months in advance, then that whole surprise return to attack Femi wasn't really a surprise at all. It might have been part of the plan the entire time. Not an unscripted change of heart, but a mapped out final chapter designed to look spontaneous. And that's really the tension at the heart of this story. Was this a legend organically realizing his body couldn't do it anymore in real time? Or a very well-produced 2-year send-off, dressed up to look like raw, unscripted emotion? Probably some of both, honestly. Wrestling almost never gives you a clean answer to that question, and that's kind of the point. Here's the thing, WWE fans know better than anyone, though. Brock Lesnar has retired before. He left in 2004 after his first WWE run and didn't come back for years. He took his boots off at WrestleMania this year and came back within a month. This is a pattern, not a one-time thing. So forgive some fans for being skeptical this time. At 49 years old, with his body clearly breaking down after that brutal Hell in a Cell match, this feels different, more final, more physically real than the last time. But final and wrestling retirement have never really gone hand in hand, and Brock Lesnar specifically has a track record of coming back to things people thought he was done with. WWE, the NFL, MMA, all of it. Let's talk about what this actually means going forward, because that's the part fans should really be paying attention to. If this retirement holds, Obafemi walks away from this as the guy who retired Brock Lesnar. That's not a small credential in wrestling. That's the kind of thing that can define an entire career. Fans have already started calling him the next Beast Incarnate, and whether that's fair or premature, WWE now has to decide how hard they push that narrative. Do they fast-track Femi into a world title picture immediately, or let it breathe a little so it doesn't feel rushed? And there's a bigger pattern here too. If Meltzer's right about AJ Styles, and possibly Chris Jericho also getting retirement send-offs this year, WWE might be intentionally clearing out its older guard to make room for the next generation, the same way they did with John Cena's farewell run. That's a business decision as much as a storyline one. Retirement tours sell tickets and merchandise, and WWE knows it. Drop a comment. Do you think we've genuinely seen the last of Brock Lesnar in a WWE ring? Or is there one more run left in the beast? Whatever comes next, it's hard to overstate what Brock Lesnar did for this business. An NCAA champion, a UFC heavyweight champion, a multiple-time WWE World Champion who ended The Undertaker's WrestleMania streak and main evented for over 2 decades across 2 different eras of the company. Very few athletes in any sport have that kind of range across 3 completely different disciplines. If this really is goodbye, it's a heck of a way to go out. Beaten by the guy WWE is clearly building as the next face of the company, with the old king publicly putting him over on the way out in his own hometown. That's not a sad ending. That's a wrestler understanding exactly what his job was, right up to the very last match. If you want the full breakdown of Kevin Owens' return and whether he's really ready to be the next champ WWE is building around, just do comment and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.